Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Stuhini Explorations Limited. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol STXPF and on the TSXV under the symbol STU, and is a mineral exploration company focused on exploration and development of precious and base metals properties in Western Canada and the Southwest United States. Please welcome President and CEO David O'Brien. Welcome to the conference today, David.
Oh, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
All right, the floor is yours. Call me back when you're ready for some questions.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's great to have you here. My name is Dave O'Brien. I'm the president and the CEO and co-founder of Stuhini. A little bit of a different background in the sense I've been an investor in mineral exploration really since the mid 80s, 39 years now. And I've been running Stuhini for 5 years. And it's an interesting way to go about this when you considerable experience investing and then you run a pubco for the first time. I've learned an awful lot. It's been quite a learning experience. It helped me a lot in my investments as well. And also I do run a real business behind the scenes. I run a fly fishing business in Vancouver, and it is a best in class business. I'm proud of that. I've got amazing staff. You're only as good as your people. But I have a little different CEO background. My educational background is math and statistics, and I kind of threw my degree out the window and bought some fishing tackle businesses and haven't looked back since. So I'll talk about Stuhini Exploration. There will be some forward-looking statements, so we rely on a disclaimer for that. Now we try to be as accurate as possible. Again, Western North America. Our primary asset is a Ruby Creek molybdenum deposit. So when I leave Vancouver to get to the project, we fly out to Whitehorse, Yukon. It's a 2-hour, 15-minute flight, and a 1-hour and 45-minute drive by highway to Atlin. And then once we're in Atlin, we're about 15 kilometers from the edge of our project by a good gravel road where we can do 50 miles an hour on. We have a Q project in the Yukon. We have a Revelstoke project, a zinc project near Revelstoke, British Columbia, and a nickel project in Manitoba. In the Southwest U.S., we have our Lindsay Copper project in Southern Arizona, and we've recently just put news out. We've acquired a CRD silver target in Nevada. We acquired that, just announced it this week. A fairly tight share structure of 46.5 million shares basic and 57.5 fully diluted. Very high insider holdings. Eric Sprott's a key insider for our company. Sprott Asset Management and Middlefield have been key investors for us as well. Sprott Asset Management, and I draw $2,000 a month salary, which is very low and unusual. And my main motivation is my shareholdings, not a lavish lifestyle. And we generally don't do any meals and entertainments. We keep a very low G&A. We stretch things out for a long time. We try our best. I'll get into why Stuhini in a minute. I'm very proud of my board and management. You're only as good as your people, and I encourage you to look at that right now if you get a chance. And especially my team, Hassan Salmavadi, our VP Exploration, Yana Selena, our CFO, and Charles Camamera, our corporate secretary. Talented board as well. We got some great advisors who've been in the industry for years. So again, you're only as good as your people, and I think that we've assembled a great team. This is a picture of our Ruby Creek project in northern British Columbia. You can see the little lake there. The open pit would be sort of in around this area in here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's just south of that lake there. So it's a gentle depression where you want to see a big porphyry system. It's a large deposit. It's ours. So a little overview on the Ruby Creek project itself. It's 29,734 hectares, and just under 30,000 hectares, 14 kilometers from Atlin. It hosts the Ruby Creek molybdenum deposit. We own it 100%, subject to a 1% net smelter royalty. It has historic silver production, tungsten production, a bit of gold mining, and other molybdenum. Very little modern exploration has been conducted within the tenures. This is interesting. Our project holds a Ruby Creek molybdenum resource, and we have a BC Mines Act permit still for the project. It's quite an advanced project, but you can see within our tenures where the permit is. So the project's almost 30,000 hectares, and the permit relates to the mine is just under 4,000 hectares. I'll talk more about hole AD 417. It's a large resource. There's a new molybdenum target to the north called Volcanic Creek as well. We've identified that. And we have 4 silver targets we've identified around Ruby Creek as well. And there's 16 separate gold min files. It is unusual for a small resource company to have a big deposit like this. This is, again, it's ours. The former operator was Adnac Molybdenum, and this project actually advanced into mine construction, advanced through bankable feasibility, environmental assessment, and they went into construction. This was a much different time in the early 2000s. The former operator had a market capitalization that was reached 300 million Canadian, and they also had an 800 million Canadian credit facility to build the mine. The project went into construction. Unfortunately, just as they started construction of the project, the 2008 financial crisis ensued. The price of molybdenum plunged, and they were uneconomic. And they were a bit of a zombie company because they'd already drawn on their 800 million. They'd drawn $80 million on their credit facility. They went bankrupt. And when no one cared about molybdenum, the co-founder of our company bought out of bankruptcy, and we optioned it from him. We've now completed the option. So with nowadays, when you report a resource, we had to do our own resource estimate. And when you do a resource estimate, you have to do what's called a pit constrained or mineable resource. So this 433 million pounds of molybdenum measured and indicated is contained within this pit shell you can see right here. And there's also some inferred resources where the drill spacing is not as tight. Just to the west, one of these holes bottomed out in 45 meters of 0.23 molybdenum. And that's one of our key targets we'd like to look at down the road. It doesn't really make sense for us to spend a lot of money because the project sort of got a bow tie on, it's ready to go. But to put things in context, the grade here is 0.053 and it's open pit, shallow open pit project. The Western world, there's not a lot of primary molybdenum mines. It's sort of dominated by Freeport and McMoran, and they have their Climax and their Henderson project. Henderson's underground. The grade at Henderson is 0.2. So obviously a hole bottoming out in 45 meters of 0.23 is notable. And again, we're 275 kilometers from Skagway, Alaska. The road's year round. So you can, obviously the seaport. Obviously the target for this deposit would be Asia, probably China, Japan, Korea, possibly India. It's also road accessible. There was always a Forest Service road there, but during the construction phase of the previous operator, they upgraded the road to a haul road, used lead core. It was a $22 million upgrade. I'm told today it'd be well north of 30 million. And we have a BC Mines Act in place. The deposit is open in multiple directions. It's open at depth. It's a very clean deposit, a Climax style deposit, not a lot of messy sulfides. As far as open pit mining goes, about as clean as you can get. Then there's another picture of the deposit right here. You can see all the drill holes. If I go back to the previous slide, this is very key where the holes are very tight. That's your starter pit. And when you build a mine, you want to pay for it as quickly as possible. The starter pit's quite a bit higher grade. And again, I can be careful what I say because you have to read the feasibility report from the previous operator, but they talked about a higher grade starter pit. It also talked about a very low strip ratio. I believe the strip ratio in the old report was 0.65 to 1. It's not our report. That meant 0.65 tons of waste for every ton of ore, which is a very shallow, kind of a continuous deposit. There's hole 8417 here that bottomed out in the higher grade. It's a very interesting project. A couple of years ago, some land was dropped to the north. We knew placer had drilled for molybdenum to the north as well. We staked at Volcanic Creek, and our teams went in there. We found mineralized outcrops, 900 meters apart, and also where placer had drilled. It's pretty interesting aspect of the project. It might be part of the same system. The rock looks similar. Of course, we don't have evidence of that yet, but it's pretty exciting. So we believe there's a second porphyry about 4 kilometers away. There's Volcanic Creek just to the north of Ruby Creek. Why molybdenum? People really don't understand molybdenum. It's an interesting metal. I believe my slides. I apologize, I took the wrong slide here. Okay, so why molybdenum? It's clean and environmentally friendly. Molybdenum is a steel additive. So everywhere you see steel, you generally see molybdenum. Even your rebar steel has some molybdenum content. Steel is iron and constituents. The World Bank pointed out the molybdenum and copper are needed in 7 of 9 green energy initiatives. Our deck isn't full of all the green energy fluff that I find very promotional, but certainly molybdenum in Canada, it's a critical metal. Ironically, it's not a critical metal in the U.S. because of Climax and Henderson. In Canada, it's considered a critical metal. What are the uses now for the green energy? The gearboxes and the wind turbines, they need to last 25 years, they need to withstand the element. They have a very high molybdenum concentration. the Germans found by lightning electric, like when you add steel, when you add molybdenum, the number one use of molybdenum, 39% of molybdenum is used to strengthen and lighten steel. So you see bridges and buildings, when you add more molybdenum to steel, the steel's stronger, so you lighten it up considerably. And the Germans have found by adding a lot more steel to the manufacturing process of their electric cars, they've reduced the weight by up to 25%. And the big thing going forward is geothermal. When you have corrosion and temperature differences, all the piping involves very high moly concentrations, again, to last the years. So it's an interesting metal. It's kind of the realm of the steel giants. It's quite not well understood. I talk about, we have a climax, we have a pure play or a primary molybdenum deposit. Most molybdenum in the Western world is a byproduct from copper mining, whereas in China, by far, most molybdenum is primary or pure play molybdenum deposits. Certainly the chemical industry needs a higher purity molybdenum, which we will produce. You can use it for anything, whereas the byproduct you can't use for everything. And it's interesting. This can cause some fairly dramatic price spikes in molybdenum. For example, in the early 2000s, when our project advanced into mine construction, molybdenum shot up well over $30 a pound, and Thompson Creek was built, and Ruby Creek advanced to construction. There's other projects out there, but I think it speaks a lot about this project that it did advance during that time. Again, when you have a byproduct, when there's suddenly a spike in demand for molybdenum, prices can be quite interesting. So when we got the project, molybdenum was less than $10 a pound, and nobody really cared about it. Right now, it's about $22 a pound. There's a dramatic price spike increase last year, and this is one of the reasons you want to, be involved. Is that the price spikes can be quite unusual. Our phone rang off the hook. We raised a pile of money. We raised $2.4 million, and we're still living on that right now, a year and a half later, and we can stretch it out another year. We're grabbing projects. We watch our dollars very, very carefully. We've joined the International Molybdenum Association. I was just in Tokyo at the AGM talking to a lot of big players in the space. And in 2022, use rose 3% to 631 million pounds. And if you look at that 631 million pounds times $20 a pound, it's as big as a nickel market dollar-wise. So it's a big, big market. It's just kind of the realm of the steel giants. And the World Bank, I talked about 7 or 9 green energy technologies. The offshore wind turbines use 130 grams of molybdenum per megawatt generated. Those big towers in the North Sea, they'll use 1.5 tons of molybdenum. I also really, as an investor, the base metal space is extremely beaten up and irrational, and the valuations are ridiculously low. I rest in case right now our market cap is around $6 million. I think it's a great opportunity. We've got inflation out there. Remember, you can't print nickel, can't print copper, can't print molybdenum, can't print precious metals. And there's a lot of overspending by governments, and people are realizing that they're valuable assets, and also a very attractive valuation in the space. Moving on, also at Ruby Creek, here's the molybdenum deposit. We've identified 4 high-priority silver targets in around the deposit. We have the Ruffner, Adira Corridor, Silver Surprise, where some of the samples are over 1% silver, over 10,000 grams per ton. These are narrow vein type structures, and narrow vein structures of shrink mining has dissipated quite a bit. It's not mainly Mexico, but obviously the price of silver and gold moving up, it might become in fashion again. But we've got some really nice targets here developed, and the Ruffner project's been in construction, been in production over the years. Look into those. Of course, geophysics is not for everybody. We believe the molybdenum targets show up fairly well. This is an airborne geophysics surveys. When we first got the project, we flew this over. Again, we now own it 100%. We've completed the option. It's subject to a 1% royalty, and 1% is quite manageable. So it's very interesting. Again, you're not going to find junior miners with a big asset like this sitting in their back pocket, which makes us unique. We recently acquired a project in the Southwest U.S. called the Red Hill CRD project. We're agnostic as far as metals go. We're just value investors, and we try to find assets that will make money for our shareholders. Personally, I really like the precious metal space. It's waking up now. And also we really like, Nevada and Arizona, Southwest Utah, New Mexico. It's a fantastic jurisdiction to do business. And we actually have reviewed over 10 projects the last year. We visited several of them. We've said no to pretty well everything. This is a project we liked from the very beginning. We've now completed the option. I do encourage you to look at the option agreement we announced. It's very cost favorable. You know, the vendor is reasonable. We're not paying too much. We're not issuing stock. We can walk away with it unscathed if we want to. And I'm really proud that we've tied this up. It's been a lot of hard work. So it's a CRD project in Nevada. It's not far from Ely, Nevada. It's over here, right against the Utah border. And 27 unpatented claims. We have mentioned in the news release, we had stakers on the property recently. We're looking to expand the land package. And it was discovered in 1872. It's a bit of historic production. And the best intercept is 12 meters of just under 180 grams silver. And there's some lead and some zinc and typical CRD systems. And these carbonate replacement deposits, sort of they're limestone hosted. CRD systems were sort of pishawed by the industry. You know, they were quite myopic. Now people realize with Bingham Canyon and Coeur mining up north and all the work Renya Silver is doing is that they're often a distal manifestation of a much larger system, and we see that footprint nearby. So we really we want to stake some more land, and it's exciting to obtain it in an attractive jurisdiction such as Arizona or Nevada. And this is just some high-grade surface, silver at surface, and there's evidence of multiple phases of mineralization. They've got several pulses of mineralization. There's a large alteration footprint. And it looks interesting. And again, it's carbonate hosted. So this is there'll be a lot. I anticipate there'll be more news about this as we keep moving forward. We have a zinc project in British Columbia. Again, it's not one of our top priorities right now. But it's a large deposit. The land on the inside here belongs to Teck Resources. We have the land around it. There's an historical resource of about 100 million tons of 4% zinc. It's near surface. It's an undulating sort of a sediment-hosted deposit. It's accessible by a Forest Service road. We own it. There's no royalties. We've done some airborne SkyTem survey, and you can see that the mineralization extends onto our tenors. And whenever we explore down here and over here, there's more mineralization there. It's a fairly large deposit. We have a Q project in the Yukon. It's early stage. We've identified 4 high priority targets there as well. We recently did some sampling. We've done some geophysics. There's some very interesting anomalies in the property, but geophysics don't guarantee you anything. And these projects, I must say, they're nothing compared to our Ruby Creek project, where the deposit's all drilled out. There's been 69,000 meters of drilling, 339 holes, a lot of feasibility work, a road upgrade. That's our flagship asset by far and away. We also staked a nickel project in Manitoba, and the highlights there is AMAX hit 165 meters of 0.32 back in the day. Falcon Bridge hit about 40 meters of 0.35 here. And these geophysics, these are bullseye anomalies where both the electromagnetic or the conductivity and the mag line up, bullseye anomalies. And they never drilled the top of these anomalies back in the day. The geophysics was done after the drilling back there. So why would you want to look at Stuhini Exploration? Well, our projects are all road accessible. They're new and they're quite underexplored. They're not projects that have been drilled by so many different people. I like to think we're business savvy, running private businesses and past success in the public and private sector. We have a very tight share structure, again, of almost 40% insider holdings. Eric Sprott's a key insider. My motivation is my shareholdings, not my $2,000 a month salary. We're presently evaluating strategic alternatives for our Ruby Creek molybdenum deposit. We've had some unsolicited interest behind the scenes. And if the market's willing to give us ridiculously low market cap, we have to look at other alternatives, and which we're doing right now. Certainly based on the resource we have at Ruby Creek, where, again, you won't find a junior quite like us. I think we're well managed. Also, molybdenum space is waking up, the base metal space. You have to buy these things when they're cheap and they're out of favor, and they come into favor. That's when one talks about them. By the time everyone's talking about them, you're generally reaping some huge profits. That's how this business works. And again, I'm really big personally on precious metals, especially silver. And we have high-grade silver both at Red Hills, our new Red Hills project, and our Ruby Creek. We have all the critical elements. We have molybdenum, nickel, copper, and zinc. Again, my deck isn't full of critical elements and why we all need green energy, but certainly that's a given. I think we're very nimble and cost-effective. I'm very proud of my team. And the money we raise goes into the ground, doesn't go into large management salaries. And we have very few meals and very modest marketing, and we really stretch our dollars. So that's it for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you so much. We've got some questions for you, David. Let's start with, you mentioned in a recent news release, you're exploring strategic alternatives for the Ruby Creek deposit. So elaborate on that, please.
Well, we put the news out, and we're not going to say a whole lot more. Obviously, we look at different possibilities, bringing in a partner, getting a strategic investment, potentially even an outright sale if it makes sense. But it's a big deposit, and it's just a matter of time. You know, these things have their day. We had a big spike in molybdenum a couple of years ago. All the base metals, there's nothing coming down the road. Again, one of the newsletter writers that covers us is Chen Lin, and he just tells his subscribers, look at the price of moly and look how it spikes up. And I don't want to make any predictions, but until next year might be a really, really, really good year for the molybdenum space. So we're just trying to find less dilutive ways to go forward. We don't want to be issuing a lot of stock, especially down here. And I don't like dilution. My private businesses don't dilute at all. So we like to keep dilution to a minimum, and this is a way we can move forward and as we grab projects and develop them without issuing a lot of stock.
Sure. Talon asks if there's any national or local government ownership.
No, it's all crown land, and we have the mineral rights to it in British Columbia. We have very good mineral tenures, where we proudly sit in the Taku River Tlingit First Nations land, and they've been very accommodative in the past. They allowed the project to go into construction. It's a long way from the reserve, and no, we own it outright. There's no encumbrances.
And a question from Drake, multi-tiered question. You can answer it however you want. Just asking about the infrastructure. You had a road updated in 2007. So what does the infrastructure look like when it comes to electric, water, the roads?
That's a really good question. Certainly the road upgrade was a big factor because it was a Forest Service road. And being a haul road, you drive down the hill on the haul road, and then you take basically a highway all the way to Skagway, Alaska. It's about maybe a 3.5 hour drive to Skagway to move the concentrate. As far as location goes, again, the feasibility study, it's not my study, but done by the previous operator. They had the pit, they had all the mill designs, they had the tailings pond design. So a lot of that's done. The one issue is power. Now there's power at the bottom of the road in Atlan, but certainly not enough to run a 30,000 ton a day operation. The previous feasibility study called for diesel, which was quite expensive. Certainly now with all the natural gas in the area, I think you'd definitely be looking at gas. Again, I don't have a study. And even the new dam in BC, there's a lot of talk about bringing power to the Yukon. There's a lot of possibilities on that end. But certainly it's road accessible, it's near infrastructure, and it's an fairly easy mine to build. You can see it's in a depression, not on a steep hillside. It's kind of a mine builder's dream, and it's ready to go. There's no trees or no salmon streams. It's not on a salmon. Well, it's on the upper reaches of the Yukon River, but the salmon are several hundred miles downriver.
Wonderful.
So
sounds lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a question from Eric wanting to know what studies have been done to date and what's coming up, if you have a timeline at all.
Yeah, no, again, this project did advance through bankable feasibility study, advance through EAC environmental assessment and into construction. So obviously, when we have to, obviously, the other build a mine, we have to redo the feasibility study. We have to redo the EAC. A lot of the work in the feasibility study doesn't need to be done. I know the metallurgy, I've been told, is okay. A lot of the designs are probably the same. So that'll save us a lot of money. As far as the environmental assessment goes, again, it has to be done. Again, we don't want to do this until we find a partner. It doesn't make sense for me to starting on a $10 million study when we don't have a partner or we don't have the market cap to build it, right? So we're basically incubating the asset. But as far as environmental assessment, we reviewed last year, we put out a news release, we reviewed the former environmental study, and we did data review, and we're told about the data we can use, the new data we'll have to collect. Of course, the rules have changed as well. So those studies need to be done. But this project could be fast-tracked into production. And, in the early 2000s, molybdenum went quite crazy. And the largest public offering ever in TSX venture history was Thompson Creek, and they just raised $700 million, and they built the Thompson Creek project, which Centerra just put back into construction, into production recently. And ours was the only other project that advanced into the construction phase. And there's only 5 of these projects in the Western world that I view as viable. And so it's not like a copper project where you can find hundreds of them. There's not a lot of primary molybdenum deposits out there. They're quite unusual. And we have one of them.
And we have a question. Ken asks about molybdenum. He's not too familiar with it. So what does that market look like? And what is the production cost versus the sales price?
Yeah, again, we thought, first of all, molybdenum is a very interesting market. It's growing very rapidly. It's a fairly large market. It's just the realm of the steel giants. I was just in Tokyo, and the International Molybdenum Association had their AGM, and every one of us agreed that the future looks really good. There's even some new non-steel related uses for molybdenum they're developing. Google battery technology, molybdenum, there's a lot of things in the work now. Dreaming about what might not happen is not a business plan, but it's very exciting. It's a very interesting metal, and the demand is very robust, and it's one of the best performing base metals, and it's predicted to be a £1 billion a year market by 2050. I've been told it might be 2040, moving up, and all the new green energy things have the need for molybdenum as well. As far as economics go, we thought we were economic when we hired a very conservative firm to do a resource update. We intentionally hired the most conservative firm out there, and they said, hey, you guys are economic, get on your preliminary assessment. And as we started on the economics, we realized the cost of building the mine has gone up dramatically. And this isn't just for us, this is for everybody. There will be no copper, there will be until the price of these commodities move up, because building mines have become so expensive. It's amazing. There's a lot of inflation out there. I recently sat down with a very large world-class company when I was in Tokyo. I don't want to mention any names. And they said to me, if you tell me your project's $1 billion to build, and I believe you're very accurate, we had double that in our modeling, because by the time you build it in 6 years from now, it'll be $2 billion. But there's such shortages of base metals coming, the prices will skyrocket. And people say, why can't we just snap our fingers and get copper? Because nothing's in the work. Everything's stale right now because nothing's economic. It's very interesting, very, very interesting.
Interesting time to be in this industry as well.
Yeah.
Last question for you, and you can close with this. Lily wants you to just explain, if you're leasing the land, and when you say you own 100%, that's the rights through a lease. How does that work exactly?
No, in British Columbia, the tenures are simple. If I'm walking through the bushes and I find some land, I can go online and see whether I can stake it. And once you stake the land, we now have the mineral exploration rights to the land. In order to maintain those mineral exploration rights, we have to spend $20 per hectare per year on exploration. However, because Ruby Creek has a permit, all we have to do to keep the land in good standing with the BC government is pay the $49,000 annual fee for our permit. That's all we do. We do that every year. We've also got about $35,000 a year in core storage, because we have all the drill core stored, or not all of it. We have about 2/3 of the drill core all in storage as well. So those are our annual costs for keeping Ruby Creek in good standing in the province of British Columbia.
All right, fascinating. Thank you, David, for being on this conference, and we would love to have you back.
Very much.
Along with your progress.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and everybody have a great day, and happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween. All right, everyone, we'll be right back with our next presenter.